Good evening. It's a Tuesday night. It's our date night. It's the coaching hour with Boitumelo Tlholakae. In this show, we build people that transform societies. I am so excited to be here tonight. I've got a coach. We continuing with Coach Comfort Hlatshwayo as from last week, and he's going to be with us for the next 3 weeks. So in all, we're going to be doing 4 weeks with Coach Comfort Hlatshwayo. He is an industrial engineer by profession, well, by qualification, and he decided that he wants to bring solutions to the country, he wants to bring solutions to the people, and he wants to teach us how to get to a process of developing those solutions and deploying those solutions. So that's our topic for tonight, solution development and deployment. So you have got to listen. Bring your notebook. Bring everyone that needs to learn from this. Let's stick onto our cameras and let's watch, and do not touch that dial. If you just joined us, we are talking to Coach Comfort Hlatshwayo. He's a qualified coach. He is an industrial engineer. He is a solutions man. So let's learn, let's listen, and bring your bring your notebooks, and we will be writing, we'll be taking notes from him. Coach, welcome.
Thank you so much, Coach. It's wonderful to be with you once again. Yet another week.
Yeah, just another week, a blessed week. I look forward to this week. By the end of this week, I should be on my way to some little vacation with my family. I hope that you are also looking forward to this week. You know, as people, we should have set goals that we need to achieve on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. So I hope those to-do lists, those goal lists are ready, and you are just waiting to tick and tick and tick each and every one of them. And I hope that you are listening and to get the motivation from this show. You are listening also to get the lessons from our brilliant coaches. And Coach, tell us, what are we talking about this week?
Tonight we're talking about solution development and deployment. And we're going to touch base on the 4 areas of the stages that one needs to consider in developing and deploying a solution. But fundamentally, I will cover the key part of my presentation will be linking back to what Mr. Tefu has covered in terms of leadership profiling. And I think that's quite important, to make sure that people understand who they are and what they're capable of. So I'll touch on the 4 elements. So I'll touch on understanding your leadership profile as a leader. I'll touch on defining the challenge before the solution. I'll touch on the third one. I'll touch on developing a value-based solution. And the last one is develop a deployment plan for the solution. So those are the 4 areas that I'll touch today. Bear in mind that today it's going to be more of an introduction. And as we go throughout the week, we'll try our level best to really build structure in those key elements.
Great. Thanks, Coach. I'm glad that, Coach Oscar and the Leadership Institute have actually just laid the foundation for us. So to those listeners that were listening during that last month when we had Coach Oscar Tefu, it's going to be a breeze. You're going to be expanding on the information and the knowledge that Coach Oscar has actually given. So take it away, Coach.
Okay. So the first thing that is important, by the way, I have my books here.
Yay! Let's see, that one is Solution Leadership.
Yeah, this one is for women.
Okay.
And this one is Solution Leader for men. And this one it's Kingdom Economics. So more on the fundamentals of Kingdom Economics. Part of my presentation, I will draw notes from the Solution Leader book as well. So yeah.
Great.
Let's do it. Yeah. All right. So the first thing that is important, or the first point of departure, which is important, is understanding your leadership profile. in my experience in the industry, whether in the corporate space or in the business space, people are struggling to understand their leadership capacity. And that becomes a number one constraint. Forget about, now we're talking about profit making, forget about doing something to make something better out of what you want to do. The first point of departure is understanding your leadership profile. Because if you understand your leadership profile, you understand your inherent capacity. If you understand your inherent capacity, it will be easy for you to channel your energy to the right path. What are you good at and what can you do best? Because there are people that are struggling to succeed or to build to the next level simply because they don't have the right capacity. For example, you are caught up in a space where you are required to be strategic. You are required to be strategic in nature, but in nature, you're not a strategic person. You're an operational person. You're a hands-on person. You believe in doing things by your hands and getting the job done. And guess what? If you don't know that, you find yourself trying to force yourself to be strategic, yet it's a gap that needs to be closed. It's a skill gap that needs to be developed over time. And with that said, that is why it's important to have the right people, to bring the right people with you, to build with you, to help you close the gaps that that are missing within your structure or within your business project. So that's quite important, that if you don't have capacity for something, don't do it. Because if you don't have capacity to build something, it will fail. It will not fail because it won't fail because it was a bad idea, but it will fail simply because you don't have the capacity to contain it. So the problem here is not the content, the problem is the container. So we need to fix the container so that the container is capable of carrying the content. So the challenge we have in the industry is the container, not necessarily the content. So before we can fix the issue of solution leadership, can we fix the container? Can we make sure that the container is fixed? Can we make sure that the container is at the right space to carry forth what it needs to carry? Now, what is also important is that your gift or your talent is linked to your solution deployment. So your gift or your talent can be a solution to the world. And I think that's one of the key areas which I believe Mr. Defo touched as well, to say your leadership profiling comes as a gift, comes as a solution to the world. But most importantly, your solution is wired to your purpose, because there are things that you would do in life which are outside your purpose. And I think that becomes a problem. People who are not fulfilled, or people who don't go far in life, it's people who want to do things outside the parameters of their purpose, outside the parameters of their capacity. If you are doing it for profit, and you are not doing it with passion, you are in trouble. Because when storms come, when the shaking comes, the very people who give up early are the ones that are doing things without passion, are doing
Those who
things
came
without purpose.
for the money. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So why did you give up? You ask people, why did you give up on your idea? No, it was tough. Okay. But those who are wired and those who are configured with passion, in the midst of all challenges, they'll pursue. In the midst of difficulty, they'll pursue their idea, they'll pursue their solution to the end. And I think that's fundamental. It's something that you cannot buy. You cannot buy passion. It's either it's there or not. And we need to fix that. We need to have a generation that is linked to passion, a generation that is wired with purpose to do things. And for me, that's key. Whether it's corporate space, I'm an industrial engineer by profession. I love what I do. I don't like routines. I don't like doing one thing, over and over again. I like challenges. I like systems. I like improvement. That's my nature, and I'm enjoying and I'm thriving in my space. So it is important that even in your career, you are really, really fixed in a place where you are passionate about.
Hey, Coach, I must say, sorry, Coach, I must say, we speak from the same hymn book, you and I. I usually tell my teenage mentees, and I tell everyone, the kids that are still studying, that are still actually in school, that you must find your passion now. What are you passionate about? And you must find that thing that pushes you to think big, and it makes you not to sleep. When you talk about careers, when you come to choosing careers, it must never be about what other people are doing or what is the skills that are needed or whatever. It comes from inside, because when it comes from inside, then it will sustain you. You will not work too hard to sustain you. I remember when I was about to choose my career, coach, I think I was in grade 9, what is called grade now. We used to call it standard 7. And I started reading, and I saw this lady, I was Christina Sebolai, who lives in our community very close to my home. And she was going to university at that time when I was about to go to high school. And I went to her, I asked her, how did you choose your career? Can you please bring me prospectus, there's this books that will talk about different careers at university. And because I was also somebody that listens and watches TV, I think it was Your TV at that time, they used to share a lot of information, and I would watch for those purposes of finding myself. And I found out that when you choose a career, it must either be something that is your passion, something that is also your purpose, like you say, coach, something that you will do effortlessly. And I started looking at myself, and I'm like, I love sharing information with people. I love listening to people's stories. I sit with grandmas and grandfathers the whole day listening to their stories, and I learn from them. And they usually ask me, fortunately for me, what is the lesson that you have learned today? So I always had to be attentive, when I'm listening to them. And I tell kids now that it has got to be something within those three elements. It has to be something you're passionate about, something that that you were born to do, something that you will do effortlessly, and it will sustain you. You will not even work too hard. You will not be bored at your job. So what I'm saying is, our kids today, they must also think about business ideas while they are in primary school, and keep on every year improving on this business idea. When they go to university, they go with a question to do the subject that is aligned to their purpose in life, aligned to who they are and who they want to be and the thing that they want to go. So when they go into business, all those answers would have been provided. They would have found those things before they even go to university. We have to build a society that births entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs that are rooted and they know where they're coming from. So I totally agree with you there, coach.
Yeah, fully. Yeah, passion is key. Passion is so instrumental.
Absolutely.
Funny enough, I started some years back. You learn in the process, right? As you grow. I started a photography business, and for me, a photography business was more of an opportunity, a gap that I saw. To say, look, if I do this, I can make money because I've seen 1, 2, 3 or other leaders doing this and that, And guess what? I invested a lot of money. I invested over 100K, back in the time, and really buying expensive equipment without, because I was looking at an opportunity to make money, So I really invested money into that business. We had a studio in Pretoria. We were renting a place there. I think at the time when we started, we were paying around 8K per month. And look, things were moving and things were okay at the time. But guess what? Coming to this point to say, down the line, as I was busy running this business, I come to realize later on to say, geez, man, when I compare my work versus the work of others or other photographers, I realized that these guys are passionate about their work, and when someone is passionate about their work, the level of quality is on another level. The level of excellence is on another level. I've come to realize then at the time to say, geez, man, this is not for me. Yeah, this is not for me. I did it because of whatever opportunity, but I was not passionate about it. And you can see clearly to say, when someone leads a solution without passion, they can only give you what is good enough. But when someone leads a solution, when they're passionate about it, they'll give you an excellent service beyond what they can give. So for me, as a point of departure, is that we need to build leaders and entrepreneurs that are not just driven by money, but entrepreneurs that are driven by solution-based concepts that are aligned to their passion. Because if you are in this career and you're not passionate about it, you're in trouble already. But if you are in this career and you have passion around it, you can find a way to survive outside the parameters of your employment, because you don't need to wait to get a job to start, but you can start where you are to build momentum. And I think that's the fundamental challenge we have in terms of leadership. And the spirit of entrepreneurship starts from where you are. The spirit of entrepreneurship starts from using the little that you have. The spirit of entrepreneurship starts from you having your passion, having purpose, and really knowing what you want to do in life, and start building up, from there. So for me, that's the foundation of what we need to establish as leaders, and to make sure that we have a society that adds value. We don't have misplaced leaders who are in professions and yet they're frustrated. Imagine a doctor or a nurse or a pilot. He's so frustrated, he doesn't want to be a pilot, he wants to be a doctor, or vice versa, and you'll find a mess. And that is why we have issues of poor service delivery, not because of whatever, but we have leaders who are in occupations without understanding their full functional purpose in life. All right. So I think for me, as an introductory part, for me, that was the main important thing to talk about, to say, yes, we want to be great in life. Yes, we want to do great exploits in life. But for me, I'm saying, let's go back to the basics. What are you passionate about? What is it that God has given you? Is there any idea that God has dropped in your spirit? What is it that you have? What is it that you always dream about? For me, that's where we need to start. And it is that in that basis where the genesis of a solution comes through, because your life then becomes wired to become a solution. You become one with that solution. It's not just an idea, but you are one with that very idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely,
Yeah.
Coach.
Yeah.
The second element that you spoke about in terms of, solution development stages, you gave 4 items there. Leadership, understanding your leadership profiling is what we've been talking about.
Yeah. All right. So the second one, which is important, is defining the challenge before the solution. Interesting enough, the most important challenge in life is, I just want to even read a quote from the book itself, just to bring it home, because in the industry, I've come to realize that, people are struggling in terms of defining the challenge. I know we talk about gaps. I know that we talk about gaps in the market that we need to address. But the most important thing is defining the challenge. All right, let me just quickly. So I'm reading from chapter 9 of my book, Defining the Challenge Before the Solution, right? I'm giving a quote from Albert Einstein. He says, given 1 hour to save the world, I would spend 55 minutes defining the problem and 5 minutes finding the solution. So he will spend 55 minutes defining the problem and only 5 minutes, developing the solution, or finding the solution rather. The fundamental thing here is that when you step into a space of identifying a gap, identifying a need, yes, it is important to do that. And I think that's the first point of departure, to say, if there is a solution, therefore it means there is a need. If there is a gap, it means there is a solution. If there is chaos in the market, it means there is a solution somewhere. So, but what is important is that solution doesn't exist in isolation. That solution doesn't just come as a solution. That solution comes at a cost. That solution comes at a cost. That is why we need to know how to define a proper quantitative and qualitative structures. of a solution, because that's where we are at. You know, I have done projects in the past where I saw a need, I saw a gap, and guess what? I got excited and I took whatever I had, and guess what? I went for it. And down the line, when you start to implement a solution because you have seen a gap, guess what? While you are implementing that solution, you come to realize that, geez, man, this thing is bigger than what I thought. This thing is even beyond me. And guess what happens at that time? You are falling off. Guess what? You are running out of resources. Guess what happens at that time? You don't have enough infrastructure. You don't have enough manpower. And then your project comes to a fail. Your project is not failing because you are not capable. Your project is not failing because you failed to identify the gap or the niche in the market. Yes, you have identified the gap. Yes, you have identified the right gap in the market. But the problem is that you failed to define the challenge before the solution. And in defining the challenge before the solution, it will then help you to say, before I embark in this journey, before I build this house, I need to calculate the cost. Before I need to build this house, I need to calculate the cost. How much would it cost me? How much would it cost me to build this house? Yes, it's a 3-story house or 2-story house. How much would it cost me? And when you start defining the problem properly, it will then help you to reduce the risk of failure. So the reason why the failure rate goes higher and higher is because we don't take time to calculate what it takes to implement what we want to implement. Because the solution on paper is totally different than a solution on the field when you implement it. You see it at work. It's easy to come up with an idea in the boardroom, but it's another thing to implement it on the ground. So defining a solution is critical. And in defining your solution, it will give you pointers. We'll go through it, I think, throughout the weeks. I'll try to help leaders to understand the fundamentals of how to do that, because the question is how then, how then to go about it. And then I'll try to give pointers in that regard, so that people can fully understand what it takes to define a solution. But with that said, I'm saying when you define a solution, you create an infrastructure on how that solution should be delivered. And when you create that infrastructure of how that solution should be delivered, you can then look back and assess whether, number one, do I have the capacity to do this? Do I have the stamina to establish this? Yes or no? If yes, then go for it. If no, then go back to your drawing board and really revisit and really build yourself up. Because you might have a challenge or a problem in the market, but you may not necessarily have the capacity to implement it. You might have the right idea or the right solution, but you may not have the capacity to implement it. Therefore, my suggestion is don't even start, because you're going to make a mess out of it. Go back and really build yourself up first, so that when you step into that space, you have the right capacity, you have the right confidence to implement it. I have seen leaders who are trying so hard to implement ideas, but yet they don't have capacity to implement, and it becomes a mess. And guess what? If you don't have capacity, if you don't have the right structure, the very resource or savings or capital you have, you're gonna misuse it. So you cannot be a steward if you don't have capacity to steward. You cannot be a steward if you don't have the character to contain what you seek to steward. And I think that's a fundamental principle here. That's a fundamental principle here, Coach.
Absolutely, Coach. Wow. When you say these things, it's like one is hearing them for the very first time, but it's how you actually link the two in terms of understanding your leadership profile, understanding yourself, what type of a person I am, what am I capable of, what am I passionate about, what drives me, that leads you to being able to be honest with yourself, put the problem here, dissect it, and say, hey, I might be able to do one section of this problem, but this other part of the problem, I'm definitely not able to do it. And that's why leadership then, you step up as a leader and say, I am not able and need help. And you go and source the other leaders that will be able to, take that part. If you're able to identify another leader that is able and capable and passionate and fully able to do the other part of your problem. I am so excited, Coach. What's the third element that we are talking about tonight?
All right. The third element is developing a value-based solution. But before we go there, I just wanted to wrap up on the second one.
Okay.
To say, when you define the challenge before the solution, you know its value. For example, if you want to do a project and it will cost you 100K, right? You would understand what is required to prepare in order for that to happen, whether you need 100K and all of that. But with that said, what is important again is that it's not just the money, but it's also the capacity that is required. And in terms of capacity, I want to take it back to prioritization, to say we want to do everything at the goal. Whereas when you define the challenge properly, you break it down into proper stages so that you can prioritize on what matters and take it and address it accordingly as part of your definition, your defining structure. So when you define a structure or a gap, you break it down in a sense that you would allocate funds accordingly so that you can implement accordingly later on. So I think that's important, that in your defining phase, you break it down properly so that in your implementation phase, you implement it properly so that you can prioritize accordingly. And I think that's important because if you failure to prioritize will lead to mismanagement and will lead to project failure at the end of the day. All right.
Coach,
all right. So I think we'll talk about.
Yeah, sorry, Coach. I was saying you actually remind me of when I was training as a coach. We have a grow model. So when you actually going to deal with a client or somebody that has approached you for coaching, you have to dissect the model and unpack it properly. And one of the things that I liked about this model was you would put the grow model here and you would look at the elements like your finances, you would look at the attitude, you would look at your ability or capabilities, and those kind of things are actually, you tick whether I have the right attitude to address this thing. Do I have the right finances to address this thing? Do I have the capability? So you are actually on point, Coach. When it comes to coaching, we have such a model. So there might be other models out there that you can use to assess yourself against the challenge that you are or the goal that you intend to resolve, or the goal that you intend to achieve. So there has to be a structure. You are right, Coach. Let's take it on.
You're right. Fantastic. The grow model, I like it as well. I'm a coach as well for the grow model. I train leaders on using the grow model as well. The grow model, the one you apply as well.
I'm glad.
All right. So let's talk about the third one.
Yes.
The third part, we're talking about develop a value-based solution. Now you understand that, yes, you have to have the right profile as a leader. Number two, you need to know how to define it properly, qualitatively so and quantitatively wise. Because if you don't put a price or a number on your solution, it's going to be hard for you to take it further. Now, the third part is critical because the third part is the engine of everything. So develop a value-based solution. When we talk about solution, we talk about value creation. So you cannot talk about a solution without value creation. So if a solution is there just to close the gap but does not create value, therefore it's not relevant. So if your solution is there but it's not creating value to the customers, creating value to your corporate space or your employer, if your solution doesn't create value, therefore it's not relevant. And I think that's important. At times we get excited to say, I want to this solution. But the question is your solution creating value? Because the basis of your solution creating value becomes the structure of your value proposition for your business model. So for your business model to exist, it has to create value. And that is why we talk about the value creation. All right. So your project has to create value to the market. Your project has to create value to the people that it intends to. So value can mean different things to different people. But value at the end of the day, it has to bring change to the lives of the people. All right. So it's important to understand your value as a leader in the industry, which will then help you to define your worth in the industry. Because if you don't understand your value, you will not understand your worth. And I'm talking about entrepreneurs. So for entrepreneurs that are struggling to really put their name out there, is really understanding their worth. Because I've struggled. I remember when I was doing consulting at the time, the first question that I was faced with was that when I was asked to say, how much is your rate? How much do you charge? And I said, I struggled at first, eventually I had to consult there and there, but I came up with a number, said, okay, 2,000 Rand at that time for an hour, and guess what? Down the line, I met other consultants, and these guys, they're charging over 100 and something thousand per day. And I'm thinking, I'm charging around 40K per day. And I'm like, this guy is charging 130, I'm charging 80. We are offering similar service. We are offering same value service, but the difference is that this guy is charging 130 and I'm charging 40K. What's happening? And psychologically, it works with us, to say, if you know your value, you will know your worth. And if you know your worth, you'll put a price tag on it.
Yes.
And because we are struggling with our inner value, our inner wealth as people, as leaders, as individuals, it becomes so difficult because we thumbsuck prices, because we don't see ourselves worthy enough to be at that price tag. Same quality standard, but still we don't see ourselves at the right standard to be there, you see. So there's a lot of internal penal beating that should happen over and above the capacity to deliver a solution. So I've realized that value, the price tag is driven by value. In fact, one of my quotes in the book, it says, value drives perception and perception influences the price tag. So the value drives the right perception. So if a lot of organizations, just to bring it home without going further and further, a lot of organizations, they build their net worth based on their value proposition. And I think that's key. If you think of Woolies as an example, what comes to mind? If you think about Boxer, yes, comes to, if you think about Boxer shops or whatever, not to name organizations, but I'm just using names that we are familiar with. If you think of Woolies, you think of quality. If you think of Boxer shops or whatever, what is it? Your superstores or whatever.
Yeah.
Supermarkets. You think of less value.
I'm thinking downtown. I'm thinking I'm not safe. I'm not going there. And I'm thinking
I'm not going there.
Yeah. If it was in a better place, I would go because the specials are very nice.
Yeah.
But they're placing, no, I wouldn't go there. Downtown Joburg.
Yeah. You understand? So a lot of organizations, they have built their organizations around their value proposition. They've built that around their value proposition. When you think of BMW has its value proposition. When you think of Mercedes-Benz, when you think of Toyota, so Toyota speaks of reliability.
Yes.
BMW speaks of performance. Speed, performance. Mercedes-Benz, they're selling class. Elegance,
yes.
Class. So they do everything in their power to define their value. So when you think about it, I mean, McDonald's, we know McDonald's as a business, we know they're into property and other things, but however, when their value proposition at first was around speed of delivery, you know that when you're hungry, you can quickly go to McDonald's or In-N-Out. But guess what? Other competitors are catching up with them. They're doing the same concept, So every every organization has to define its value. So when we talk about value proposition, it's important because value drives your price tag. I worked for different organizations, big companies, big organizations, and their pricing model is based on their value proposition. Because of they value themselves at a specific level, they price themselves at a specific level. So what it means is that they work very hard to set a standard and build pillars to support the standard. So one thing about value, as we proceed to the fourth one thing about value is that when you set a value structure of quality, you need to make sure that you build systems that will support that statement. And that's what this is one of the challenges we see in the industry or in the Black community rather. You find someone saying, hey, I offer good service, but when you come to experience the service, it's something else. So value doesn't come by default, value comes by design. So it is important that you build structures to support your value. If you say you are an excellent person, you offer excellent service, therefore create systems to ensure excellence. If you say you offer reliability in terms of the work you do, build systems to offer reliability. Because you'll be tested based on your value. And if you fail on implementing the value that you profess, therefore you'll be out of the game. So your value, your solution is based on the value that you create. And the value that you create is based on the systems that you establish to make sure that you sustain that value. And that's important.
Very true. Very true.
That's important.
Very true, Coach. It's time to really reassess and introspect as entrepreneurs. I hope the entrepreneurs are listening and taking notes.
Yeah.
The fourth one,
people
Coach?
Are willing to. Yeah. So last one, people are willing to spend any amount because of value.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
People who value. People are willing to spend a lot of money because they value. They realize the power of value. So some of us were worried that we're not getting a support. We're not going to support you because you don't have enough value. You have not defined your value, number one, and you're not projecting your value properly. And that is why your pricing structure is not done properly.
And people must also understand that in the value, there's behavior, there's attitude.
Yeah.
How you handle your customers, how you present yourself, that adds to the value. Value is not something that falls from the sky. Value is something that you tailor make according to the needs of your customers. Attitude is one of them. When we talk about Black businesses, attitude is your first. Reliability is your first, is your second. You have to master those things, and those are not just the limits, but there's more to creating value according to what your customers need. Over to you, Coach.
And that is why we have organizations that are measuring KPIs for customer service.
Absolutely.
Because if your customer is not happy, they won't come back for more. So it's really about that. I think that's important. And we'll talk about it throughout the weeks later on to say, how do you do it? How do you create value and how do you build it so that people can have an experience? The fourth one is develop a deployment plan for the solution. Building a plan that will deliver the value. And people don't like to plan, but they like to execute. And I think that's a problem, and sooner or later you'll come to realize that if you execute what you didn't plan, you're in trouble already. So if you execute what you didn't plan, you're in trouble. And the culture in our society is really finding people who are driven by actions, hustling in the name of hustling, in the name of doing whatever, but outside the parameters of a plan, because a plan is like, like when we talk about family structures, systems and budgeting systems, you cannot be financially liberated if you don't have a budget. You cannot be financially liberated if you don't discipline yourself to have a budget in life, and things like that. So a plan puts discipline number one. A plan will enforce discipline. A plan will enforce accountability. And that's important. You need to become accountable. You need to become accountable to your plan. And many a times people have changed plans like as is nothing, but they're not accountable. If you plan and you're not accountable, therefore you're not stable. So a stable leader is a leader that has a plan and is accountable to his plan. Why do you change? You need to account to your changes. You don't just change. You don't just do this and drop it. And tomorrow you are doing something and you drop it. Tomorrow you are doing something different, you drop it. And that's the nature of the society. That is why people don't have confidence in our leadership, because today Coach Boitumelo, he's been doing this, he's running a salon. Tomorrow he stopped the salon, he's running this project. Tomorrow he stopped this feeding scheme. Tomorrow he's running a feeding scheme. No, tomorrow this thing is not working. Tomorrow is this, tomorrow is that, tomorrow is that. And guess what? If there is no accountability in your structure, everything that you do doesn't lead to growth, but leads to disformation. It leads to you're not progressing. You're decreasing. Or you're not progressing in life. You're regressing in a way. You're going backwards, and that's a problem. Yeah, you're not. That's a problem. So when you have a plan and you build with accountability, when you move from one level to the next, there is a build-up plan. When you do this project, when you transition to a new project, there has to be a clear path that I have done this project. This is what I've done. This is what I've learned. And therefore, I'm doing this. I'm going to do this project different. So there has to be we need to trace back your progress. We need to trace back your build-up to say you have done this as per your plan, but now you're transitioning to this plan. But therefore, we need to see a build-up from one level to the next. And when we see a build-up from one level to the next, therefore there is growth. But when you do this project and you let it go, do this project, you let it go, do this project, you let it go, there's no growth. And later on, you'll find yourself being frustrated. You find yourself being discouraged because you are all over the show. There is no prioritization. Now, one of the most important things about developing a plan is to discipline you to prioritize. In the industry, we talk about prioritization, that there is top 3 structures that you cannot exceed the top 3 prioritization if you want to succeed. So you need to prioritize at least top 3 key structures. Priority number 1, priority number 2, priority number 3 in your plan. So you have a solution. You have defined the value of your solution. Now, what is your priority? The prioritization of the implementation of the solution. It's important because how do you prioritize it? It's key. How do you prioritize building up a solution is important. We, together with my partners, we were doing a farm project, right? We bought some land and we started to plant and all of that. And guess what? We have big ideas. If you sit out in our strategic meeting, we talk about big and exciting ideas. We talk about we want to process this product and this and that. Guess what? We did a number of things. We processed some capsules. We started planting at the same time. We started doing this. We started doing that. And guess what? While we are busy developing, we come to realize that, geez, man, yes, we are implementing our ideas, but our ideas are not fully synchronized and fully prioritized well. And we find ourselves in a situation where we are losing cost. We're losing money in the process. Why? Because we're trying to build this and this at the same time. And that it's something that would lower us down. So the principle, we had a review last time and we went back to the drawing table and say, how do we prioritize? Let's build this first. Let this part, that priority number 1 be a success first before you move to priority number 2.
Absolutely.
Because If priority number 1 is not a success and you are jumping to priority number 2, number 3, you're in trouble, because you're going to waste a lot of resources, you're going to waste a lot of money, and down the line you would give up on the project because of your poor structure and management. So the rule here in solution deployment is make a success of the first priority. It doesn't matter how small it is. It doesn't matter how. Master something first. Perfect it. Perfect this one thing before you can perfect the next thing. We cannot. I was laughing to when I meet these young entrepreneurs and the aspiration they have to say, hey man, I want to make money. I mean, if you cannot master to make 5 grand a month, 2 grand a month, forget about 100,000. Can we master the basics? Can we get back to the basics of, gain confidence first to make your first 5,000. Gain confidence first to make your first 10,000. Gain confidence first to know how to put systems that can give you 10,000. And when you know how to put systems that can give you 10,000, therefore, those systems should build you up to say, you know what, my next challenge should be 20. My next challenge should be 100, and. And I think progressively, that's how you need to grow, and look at tenderpreneurs. I was sitting with the other project manager, we're talking about different projects and tenders and stuff. And he said to me, Comfort, look, it's a mess in the industry. People get these big tenders and they mess up. They mess up financially. They buy things. They don't know how to manage. And I don't blame them. How do you entrust someone with $1 million to manage a million project, $1 million rand project? Yet this person never managed a whatever project, a portfolio below that. So we need to understand that a plan builds you before you build it. A plan, in fact, the purpose of a plan, it's sort of building you while you're thinking you're building it as a leader. So you're building a plan to achieve results, but not realizing that the very plan that you're building is actually building you to become a better leader, to achieve greater results. That's planning in that sense.
That is so
Coach.
True. That is so true, Coach. I have a friend and a pastor who likes to say to me, God never wastes any experience. So whatever it is that you go through, whether it's challenges, whether it's bigger problems, whether it's something scary in front of you, God never wastes an experience. So nothing happens without a reason. Nothing just happens. There's always a reason and a lesson to learn from each and every experience. Coach, do you still have some more for us? I'm so interested. I'm so tuned in. Everything that you are saying makes so much sense. I'm actually introspecting, and I hope that our listeners are listening and are introspecting and are learning, big lessons from what you are saying. And I know that you speak from experience, and you speak, from experiencing coaching other businesses and other entrepreneurs.
Yeah, Coach. One thing that I can add in terms of solution leadership, right, or building a solution, a value-based solution in your project and what you do, is that when you have a plan would enforce a discipline, right? But then the discipline can only be exercised if you follow a routine, all right? So a routine would then become a blueprint to redesign your habit. So you need to understand that we all have different habits. So if I say to you now, come, let's join gym, let's join gym and eat this type of food. I tell you, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle. You'll come to realize that, geez, man, it's not just about a program that says eat this, eat that. It really hits home because it really touches your habits. So in many times, you have leaders that have great plans, right? You have a great plan, but your habits are not fully synchronized or fully aligned to the plan. And therefore, the plan just fails. There is, I mean, we talk about procrastination and stuff like that, but for me, that's not even an issue. The issue for me is really and not finding time, not finding yourself just to implement what you said you'll implement, and not finding space. Yeah, the commitment, the commitment to do what you want to do. And that's where most leaders are struggling. People are struggling from you develop a plan, and you come back and struggle to implement the very plan that you implemented. No one gave it to you, but you design it for yourself. But yet you find in a space where you struggle. And that's where coaching comes in. That's where mentoring comes in, where you have a mentor, where you have someone to account to. So coach, never have a plan. I want to give you a personal advice as well. Never have a plan without having an accountability structure on it. Never have a plan without an accountability structure for it. So an accountability structure will help you to put you in line, to fix your habits so that you align to the goal. I remember there's one of my friends, his name is William Mashau. William Mashau, he challenged me to write my book, my first book. He's the one who, it was so funny because I would say to him, man, I want to write. He said, okay, you want to write? When are you planning to write? I'm like, yeah, this month I'm starting. He's like, okay, all right, start then. All right. And then he asked me a question, what is your goal for the month? And I'm like, I want to write 2 chapters, Oh, okay, 1 chapter. All right, okay, cool. No, he will note it. So he will then say, what is your goal then for the week? What is it that you want to achieve? And I'm like, and guess what? I found myself in that space where I would relax, do nothing, and do whatever, focus on other things. And every time when he calls me, I know I'll be in trouble. Every time when he calls me, I know that he will ask me one question: how many words have you written? How many words have you written? What is it that has you done? And really that accountability structure really put pressure on me to start being disciplined, to say, geez, man, if I want to meet a goal, if I want to write 1 chapter, if I want to have 4,000 words in this chapter, I need to at least write 1,000 words a week. So that will be my target, and I will push myself. And if he phones me, he's like, how many words did you write? I'm like, 1,000. Good. Next week, how many? 2,000 now. How many? 3,000. Now 4,000. Now I achieve my goal. So the accountability structure is key in our success.
I had a coach. Sorry, coach. I had a coach as well when I was writing my MBA. I was left with only 2 months when I realized that the results of my research are not are not going where they're supposed to be going. Not that I write because I have expectations, but at least certain things need to gel, need to come, there has to be a map. So certain thing has to follow a certain map, and things were not coming together. And I remember I consulted a coach, Lesego Sito. Oh my goodness, such a brilliant child. Lesego Sito was my coach, and I was left with 2 months. And I had another coach I had a mentor, somebody that has written research before, somebody that is mentoring and lecturing at UNISA, Bongani Shibalala, I think. Yeah, Shabalala. And every week I had to report. Every day I had to tick. I had a program. I had something on my notebook that I put there. When I page on my notebook, I needed to have certain things that I have done. Number of people that I've interviewed. How are the responses coming? How do I plot them? It was difficult, but I made it in 2 months. I wrote an MBA research coach.
Wow.
So coaching is needed. A plan is needed. Accountability partners are needed. When you are going to achieve something big, if you really, really want to achieve something, you have got to have an accountability partner. You need to have a coach.
That's key.
You
That's
are
key.
taking me back there, Coach. It was difficult. But I
Yeah,
tell you, I achieved and I passed my MBA on record time.
good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well done. Well done. Fantastic.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Coach. Can we then close on this subject? I don't know if you still have something, but I would like to close and just give a word of motivation for this week.
Yeah, we can close on it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Coach. It's been a great pleasure to have you here. It's been mind-blowing experience to have you here. You really stretch my mind, and I hope that entrepreneurs out there, people, our listeners are listening and are learning a lot of lessons. This can be taken and absorbed, into personal space as well. You need an accountability. You need to create value. Even for
Yeah.
yourself, how do you want people to perceive you? That is value
Yes.
creation. That is value proposition. When you're meeting people, when how you present yourself out there, that is value proposition. We offer value proposition in every space that we find ourselves. You are faced with a situation where you have to define yourself, define the person that you are, and if you have to be trusted, you have got to show it. And people must learn, and people must voluntarily trust you without you saying, trust me. It's earned. Trust is earned. So you need to have a strategy, a plan in terms of how you are going to achieve that which you are set out to achieve. Every week, every month, for you to write that book, you need to have a plan. You need to have an accountability partner. So thank you so much, Coach. I've learned a lot, and I look forward to what we're going to talk about next week. Can I give you just a minute to tell us about what we're going to learn about next week? Otherwise, your details, I'm going to put your details, your contact details on our Facebook page. I hope that those who are listening on and watching over our Facebook page, you have learned a lot. If you have any questions, please put them on our Facebook page, and we will ask Coach your relevant questions in the coming week. I'm so grateful, and thank you so much, Coach, for coming. We are going to have a good time next week. We are going to have more information coming up next week. And for those that are, for all of us South Africans, I pray that you would continue to, and I encourage you to continue to observe lockdown, COVID-19 lockdown regulations. Please adhere to them, and do take care of your family members. Do take care of your beloved ones. Isolate if you know that you have been exposed, and if you know that you have tested positive. And let us continue to pray for our country. I will encourage you to continue to pray for our country, for our leadership, for our economy. I think for me, it's something that we will win, when we at our knees, when we're praying, and we continue to be accountable. Wear your masks everywhere, every time you go in public spaces, wash your hands, continue to adhere to those things, and pray and pray and pray for our country. Until we meet again next week, thank you, Coach Comfort Hlatshwayo. We will meet again next week.